trapped at a gas station with a spike parasite monster that keeps evolving and cannot be stopped. The film begins by showing a small gas station where a gas station attendant named Blake notices something moving in the bushes. At first, he thinks it is just a cat, but it turns out to be a mysterious creature that suddenly attacks him viciously.
Go on, I ain't got nothing. Jesus.
The film then shifts to a young couple planning to go camping in the middle of the forest, a woman named Polly and her boyfriend Seth. However, their plan is ruined when their tent turns out to be damaged, forcing them to cancel the plan. They decide to look for a nearby motel to stay in instead. While packing and organizing their belongings, Seth explains that the trees in the area are not allowed to be cut down. He mentions that the forest is a protected area under government control, meaning it remains very natural and has not been heavily touched by human activity. After finishing everything, they continue their journey and head toward the main road in search of the nearest motel. In another place not far from there, a couple who appear to be criminals, Dennis and Lacey, are on their way to Mexico when their car suddenly breaks down in the middle of the road. With no other choice, Dennis takes his pistol and decides to abandon all of their belongings, including the car, to eliminate any trace of their escape, as they are currently being hunted by the police after committing a crime. Not long after, they come across Polly and Seth. Pretending to ask for help, Dennis and Lacey instead plan to steal their car. Polly and Seth are not allowed to leave and are taken hostage.
What the?
Oh my God.
Get out of the car. Nice and easy. You gotta trust me. We're gonna do this right.
Listen to me. You gotta trust me, okay? You trust me. You can't drive stick, okay?
You, in back, over here. Lacey's up front. Relax, just relax. Let's go.
During the journey, Dennis takes their wallets and throws away their phones so they cannot call for help. However, their trip is interrupted when the car hits a dead animal on the road, causing a flat tire. Polly and Dennis then replace it with a spare tire, and while carrying the damaged one, Dennis accidentally gets pricked by a sharp spike on the tip of his index finger. Meanwhile, Lacey and Seth examine the animal's carcass, and Lacey claims it is her dog named Ginger. Since Seth is a PhD student in biology, Lacey forces him to try to save it. Even though its body is torn apart and covered in strange spikes, the animal still shows slight movement. As Seth is about to touch it, the creature suddenly moves unnaturally fast. Shocked and panicked, Lacey immediately shoots it.
Come on, biology. Ginger needs you.
Okay.
Because Lacey is overwhelmed with panic, they quickly leave the place. However, it can be seen that the spikes still stuck in the old tire begin to grow and move on their own, and those spikes are most likely the same ones that pierced Dennis's finger. Lacey, still in a state of panic, says that her dog Ginger had tried to attack her earlier. However, Dennis quickly calms her down by saying that Ginger has actually been dead for a long time, and what they saw was most likely just a wild animal from the forest. Noticing that Lacey is not in a stable condition, Dennis asks when she last took her medication. Lacey replies that she took it yesterday. Not long after, their car's radiator suddenly breaks down, forcing them to stop at a small gas station that looks the same as the one seen at the beginning of the film. Seth is told to fill up the gas, while Polly and Dennis go to buy radiator coolant. Meanwhile, Lacey decides to go to the restroom. As she is about to enter, Lacey witnesses something horrifying. Blake, the gas station attendant who was previously attacked by the mysterious creature, is somehow still alive, but in a terrible condition, with his body covered in black spikes. In a panic, Lacey quickly tells Dennis what she saw, but Dennis assumes it is just her hallucination getting worse. Not long after, Blake actually appears and begins attacking Lacey.
What's going on?
There's a man with spikes. Baby, in the bathroom, there's a man!
Get back!
Dennis immediately tries to shoot him, but even after being shot, Blake keeps moving. As the situation becomes more dangerous, the three of them rush into the store and lock the door, leaving Lacey outside. Seeing how irrational and dangerous things have become, Polly tries to call the police, but Dennis stops her by smashing the phone, not wanting to deal with the authorities so his plan can continue. Polly is then struck with the handle of the gun, the phone cable is ripped out, and even in that tense situation, Dennis still takes all the money from the cash register. Worried about Lacey, Dennis checks on her and sees that her body is still moving as if she were alive. He plans to bring her inside the store, but Seth stops him, pointing out that Blake's body is still moving and could attack at any moment. Ignoring Seth's warning, Dennis steps outside and slowly drags Lacey's body. Seeing an opportunity, Polly quickly locks the door to keep Dennis out, but Seth urges her to open it, fearing that Dennis might shoot them at any time. As Dennis asks to be let in, Lacey's hand suddenly moves on its own and grabs his leg, shocking him. Fortunately, Dennis manages to escape and get back inside.
She's alive! Open the door! Open the door!
Open the door. Open the fucking door!
They soon realize that Lacey's severed hand is still alive and moving by itself. Even after Dennis pins it down with a sack of rice, the hand is still able to stand and even follow Seth's movements. Witnessing this unnatural event, Seth, a PhD student in biology, begins to suspect that the entity infecting Blake and Lacey is a parasitic organism in the form of spikes. The parasite survives by feeding on blood to sustain its cells and constantly seeks new hosts to survive. It most likely originates from the forest, which, as Seth mentioned earlier, is a protected area that has rarely been explored by humans. Not long after, the severed hand eventually weakens and dies due to the lack of blood supply.
It's metabolizing. It's absorbing the nutrients on a cellular. It's digesting the blood. Look at this. I think it's stopping.
However, the situation becomes even more horrifying when Lacey's body suddenly starts moving again and tries to break down the door. This confirms that Lacey is already dead, and her body is now fully controlled by the parasite. Seeing that his girlfriend can no longer be saved, Dennis can only surrender to the situation, overwhelmed with grief. Seth then leads Dennis to the storage room at the back so they can distance themselves for a moment and try to calm down. The three of them plan to escape through the back door. However, since there is no key, Polly tries to open it by removing the hinges. Meanwhile, Dennis, still in shock, begins talking about his future plans, wanting to take Lacey to Mexico, live a peaceful life, build a family, and have many children. But all of those hopes are shattered by the spike-like parasite that has taken Lacey's life. After successfully removing the hinges, they realize that behind the wooden door, there is still a locked metal gate. At the same time, Lacey, who has been relentlessly banging on the front door, starts crawling onto the roof, making the situation even more intense and terrifying. Not long after, a police officer named Terry arrives at the scene. She has come to capture Dennis, who is now a wanted criminal. They try to warn Terry to leave immediately because the situation outside is extremely dangerous. Dennis even stops thinking about escaping and instead asks Terry to call for backup. However, because the store is soundproof, Terry cannot hear their shouts. Instead, she assumes that Dennis is holding two people hostage and has already killed another person lying on the hood of the car. In the middle of this tense situation, Terry is suddenly attacked by Lacey, and her body is brutally torn in half.
Every state trooper in Oklahoma looking for you, Farrell. Get in your car! Look, you're not listening. There's something out there!
You're gonna get in your car right now, and you're gonna call this in.
14, come in. I'm not letting you out of my sight.
The parasite can be seen entering Terry's body and feeding on her blood. Seeing what happened, Polly becomes increasingly hysterical, believing that their fate will end just as tragically as the others. Dennis then explains that help will not arrive anytime soon because the police already know about his plan to go to Mexico and will most likely be looking for him there. In the middle of the situation, Dennis remembers that the area is a protected forest. He comes up with a plan to start a fire near the gas station so that firefighters and the police will be forced to come to the location. They take a flammable liquid and pour it out from the back door in large amounts, allowing it to slowly flow toward the forest. However, Seth worries that the plan could backfire, as the fire might spread back to the gas station and cause a massive explosion. At the same time, a noise is suddenly heard, which turns out to be coming from Terry's radio that is still hanging from her waist. Rather than risking a fire, Seth decides to retrieve the radio using a simple hook through the service window, hoping they can use it to contact the police. Meanwhile, Dennis begins to panic as the spike that pierced his finger slowly spreads across his hand, even starting to break his fingers. To hide his condition, he quickly wraps his hand with a cloth so Polly and Seth will not notice. Not long after, once the radio is successfully hooked, Lacey suddenly appears and nearly manages to get inside the store. The parasite even severs Lacey's hand so it can slip inside. Although they manage to retrieve the radio, it turns out to be damaged and unusable. At the same time, Lacey's severed hand starts moving on its own and begins chasing them.
Seth, I think you made a run for it.
Because the creature is extremely difficult to stop, they eventually escape through a refrigerator that leads to a cold storage room for drinks. Strangely, once they are inside the low-temperature room, the hand seems to lose its instinct and can no longer track their presence. Suddenly, Dennis's hand begins to react as if it has a will of its own. The spikes continue to grow and spread, even causing his hand to break. Realizing that his condition is getting worse, Dennis asks for a knife and intends to cut off his own arm to stop the parasite from spreading further. However, he is too weak to do it himself. Seeing this, Polly and Seth act quickly by restraining his arm and cutting it off using a sharp cutter. Because the bone cannot be severed easily, Seth is forced to break it using a block of stone, and the method eventually works.
Oh my god. Fuck me. I'm gonna have to cut it. Give me that knife.
Cover his arm. Don't let any of those touch you, okay? I'm gonna tie this off.
Don't let it touch you. It's okay.
3,
Do it.
2.
Dennis is convinced that the spike that pierced his finger earlier came from the same parasite at the gas station. He then begins to explain why he is being hunted by the police. It turns out that he once committed a robbery and shot a truck driver. Although the man initially survived, he eventually died a year later. During that time, his wife suffered greatly as all of their savings were spent on his medical treatment. Because of that, Dennis plans to redeem himself by going to Mexico with Lacey and giving all of his remaining money to the truck driver's wife. After that, Seth finally realizes the parasite's weakness. It is attracted to heat or high temperatures. This explains why the parasite in Blake's body jumped onto the hot car hood earlier, and also why it could not detect them while they were inside the cold storage room. To take advantage of this weakness, Seth plans to lower his body temperature below room temperature around 93 degrees Fahrenheit by placing ice all over his body. However, he must be careful not to let it drop below 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit, as that would put him in a critical condition. Once his body temperature has dropped, Seth prepares to go outside while holding the ice to get the police car so they can escape. Meanwhile, Polly will throw firecrackers toward the back door to distract the parasite with the heat from the explosions.
Not if you can keep me above 89.6. Just a couple more degrees.
You're gonna be okay.
I love you.
I love you too.
Because of the cold, Seth's body begins to shake violently, causing him to accidentally drop the ice covering him. Even so, he slowly manages to reach the police car. Meanwhile, Polly, who is worried about Seth, loses focus and fails to continue throwing the firecrackers, allowing the parasite creature that was at the back door to disappear. At the same time, Seth is still unable to contact the police using the radio in the car, and his body temperature begins to rise beyond the safe limit. The parasite creature then starts targeting Seth as his body becomes warmer. To save him, Polly and Dennis bravely distract the creature by making themselves the bait. They quickly retreat into the refrigerator to hide. At the same moment, the fire from the firecrackers ignites the flammable liquid that had been poured earlier, causing the storage area to catch fire. The severed parasite hand that had disappeared approaches the flames and is burned, while the main parasite creature becomes torn between attacking the fire or the humans. Not long after, Seth returns carrying the police officer's shotgun and starts shooting at the creature. However, since it is extremely difficult to kill, Dennis takes the shotgun and tells Seth and Polly to escape immediately. With only one hand, Dennis is still able to pump and fire the shotgun with decent accuracy. However, his ammunition eventually runs out, and the creature attacks him viciously. Severely wounded, Dennis tries to lure it away while reloading. He then makes a desperate decision, aiming not at the creature, but at the diesel tank. In the end, the creature is engulfed in flames. In his final moments, Dennis gives the bank account key to Polly and Seth and asks them to deliver all the money to the truck driver's wife as a way to atone for his actions. He also suggests that Polly and Seth should get married. Before the parasite can fully take over his body, Dennis shoots the fuel tank, causing the entire gas station to explode and destroying any remaining parasites, including himself. Meanwhile, Polly and Seth continue their journey to Mexico to seek help and to meet the truck driver's wife. The scene then shifts to the protected forest, showing the carcass of an animal already contaminated by the parasite, with no one aware of its presence. This indicates that the threat is not over, as the parasite will most likely continue searching for new hosts, whether humans or animals. The film does not clearly explain the origin of this parasite, which we can refer to as the splinter. However, based on the clues given, it is likely that the parasite originated from a protected forest area that was once used as a site for chemical experiments. A leak of chemical substances may have infected organisms in the wild, eventually causing them to mutate into the deadly parasite seen throughout the film. This parasite also appears to have a rapid ability to adapt, control its host, and respond to temperature, suggesting that the mutation has turned it into something far more dangerous than its original form, and that is the end of the story.